Hello and welcome to Chapter 4, Part 1. Um, you've gotten your assignment for a case study, but we're going to continue with material for the next couple of weeks while you're working on the case study. So today we're going to talk about market segmentation, which is Chapter 4 in your textbook. And before we start, I'm going to put out a question to everybody, see if anybody can answer this. Where in the world is that beach that we're looking at as the background for this slide? I'll give you a hint. It's not in the Caribbean, and it's not south of Camden. So it's somewhere in Maine, north of Camden. And it's about 3 miles long. And as you can see in the photo, at least at this point, pretty deserted. And I think it's pretty deserted most of the time. So pretty gorgeous place. If anybody knows where it is, let me know. I'll let you know where it is later, maybe in the next lecture. So, market segmentation. What is it? Why do we do it? What's it all about? You're surrounded by products that are segmented to appeal to certain pieces of a market. And the reason that we look at market segmentation is that it lets the company or the organization that's marketing something target those people who are going to be the most interested in it. So mass marketing means marketing to everybody. We're not going to worry about who uses our product. We're just going to get the word out to everybody. Mass marketing can work. It's harder and harder in today's media markets to do mass marketing because there are very, very few mass means of communication. When I was a college student, there were 3 networks and all my friends watched the same shows. So everybody that was in my age category was watching a few shows. So you could always talk to people about what was on TV because everybody watched the same thing. These days, there's hundreds of channels, lots of different things to watch, and different kinds of people choose to watch different things. So it's really hard from a marketing standpoint to do a mass marketing. One of the few mass marketing venues these days is the Super Bowl because more than half the population watches that particular TV show. But there aren't many of those, and they're hard to use. So marketers for a long time have been moving away from mass marketing, and they've gone to what's called segmentation and then targeting the segment that fits their product best and positioning their product to meet the needs of that segment. So tends to be much more efficient. It also tends to meet needs better. As we get more and more choices, we have more and more choices in TV channels. We have more and more choices in almost everything, and we get to choose what really fits our need, as opposed to a mass product that fits a generic need. So it's this trend towards segmentation and targeting and positioning in marketing also meets the needs of consumers in many cases. Lots of things driving it: the ability, production ability to make different kinds of things, to make different flavors of similar products, or to make many different kinds of products, all the way down to, say, 3D printing, which you can do a totally custom product on a one-by-one basis. If you go back far enough in marketing and you think about the original Fords, the Model A's and the Model T's, Henry Ford had a famous statement, said you can have any color you want as long as it's black. So he didn't want to have lots of different colors because it was more efficient to just make all the cars that he made the same color. Well, he had to change his tune at some point when other companies, specifically General Motors, but some others as well, said, wait a minute, we're going to give customers what they want. They don't all want black cars. They want different color cars. So we're going to provide colors and choices, and we're going to provide different models to meet different segmenting needs, and that's going to give us an advantage in the marketplace. So General Motors, whereas Ford had Ford, and they had all one color and they had just a couple of models. General Motors started by this segmentation trend by creating a variety of brands, each one of which met a certain need within the marketplace. So they had Chevrolet as sort of the comparable product to Ford, but then they had Buick and Oldsmobile and Pontiac and Cadillac, which fit different segments of the market. And those are economic segments and so forth. So that's kind of an old time segmentation story, but it's a good one because it's sort of where segmentation came from, and you can see maybe the utility of it. It helped General Motors outstrip Ford as the largest car company in the U.S. for a long time. So when we go to segmentation, we try to group customers into a segment of people who have similar needs and attitudes. So how do we do that? Well, we figure out the segment. So college students who have to carry books. Well, if I'm in the backpack business, that might be a market segment that I target. So that would be a different segment than campers who need to carry tents and sleeping bags, and it would be a different market segment from moms who need to carry diapers and nose wipes or something. They're different segments. So if I'm in the backpack market, I might target college students, or I might target campers, or I might target moms, and those would be three different segments, and I would design my product to meet the needs of those segments rather than having a generic product that sort of met everybody's needs kind of well. So that's kind of what we're talking about for market segments, and within every segment there's often niches or small pieces of those markets that have different needs. So within the backpacking market for campers, there might be a segment for people who like to camp in the winter and need a way to carry ice axes and snowshoes. So now you're going to take that backpack and you're going to take it down even to a smaller niche of winter campers who need ice axes and snowshoes and a way to carry them when they're not wearing them or using them. So that's an example of a niche. So the first thing we have to do when we're going to segment is we have to pick the general market that we're looking at. And that would be, we're going to eliminate all those people who have no need for the product or are inappropriate, don't have the right criteria, aren't old enough to buy the product or aren't strong enough to use the product or whatever that might be. Then you're going to apply some variables, and then you're going to assess and pick the segments that you want to target. So here's a little chart. This is a relatively useful chart. So segmentation, we have to select the market, we have to apply the variables, segmentation variables, and then assess the segments for targeting. Then when we're targeting, we have to decide how many segments we might choose to target, and then figure out how to cover those segments. And then when we're positioning our product, we want to make sure that the attributes of our product are meaningful to our target market. So for that winter camping market, special straps that hold snowshoes would be meaningful. It would be totally non-meaningful attribute for a mom carrying diapers. So you are a student carrying books, they're not going to be carrying snowshoes. So that particular attribute differentiates my product for winter campers from the product that's designed for other targeted segments. And then you're going to make sure that your product is positioned through strategy and tactics. So if I've got this winter camping backpack, how am I going to position the product? That may mean product attributes, or it may mean product image. So, well, very famous mountain climbers and winter campers use my backpack, so they must be good. That would be a one way to position it. Or I advertise my product in places where winter campers or outdoor adventurers are likely to see the product. I distribute it through channels where those people shop, and so forth. So I'm gonna use my strategy and tactics to make sure that I meet the needs of my target market, and also position my product so it appeals to my target market. So how do we break up the variables? So these are the four basic variables for consumers. So we have, I'm going to start with the second one because it's the one that most people are familiar with, demographics. Age, gender, married, unmarried, family status, how many people live in your household, what your income is, what your occupation is, what your education is. Those are demographic segmentation variables. So I might decide that my product appeals to men who are married and have at least 4 people in their household and have an income above some level, have a college education. Whatever it is, my product, I can segment my market by looking at demographics. I can also segment markets by behavior and attitudinal differences. So how price sensitive are. If I'm a price sensitive consumer, then I'm going to be much more interested in price than other attributes. So therefore, if I'm going to target price sensitive consumers, I have to have a good price. But there are lots of consumers who aren't price sensitive. And by the way, just as an aside, price sensitivity often doesn't have anything to do with income levels or resources. Some people are extremely price sensitive, even though they may have lots of resources. And other people are not, even though they may not have a lot of resources. So it's a behavioral characteristic. Behavioral and attitudinal characteristics are harder to decipher than demographic characteristics. Then we've got geographic characteristics. So how close do people need their product to where they live? What climate is my product used for? If I'm selling air conditioners, then a warmer climate is maybe a better place to sell air conditioners. If I'm selling snow shovels, I obviously need to sell snow shovels in a geographic area that has snow. And then psychographic differences, different kinds of lifestyles, activities, interests. These are also, like the behavioral ones, hard to pin down research-wise. Demographics and geographics, pretty easy to do. Lots of public information available. So here's some examples of the different kinds of geographic things you might look at. You might look at regional geographics, so let's say the Northeast. You might look at urban, suburban, and rural characteristics. Oftentimes consumers in those three geographic areas have very different needs. So rural people that live around Castine, Maine, have very different needs than people who live in New York City. Very, very different. Suburban people who live in the suburbs of big cities also have different needs. You may look at population density, you might look at climate, terrain, all sorts of different kinds of things, mountainous areas, flat areas, that kind of thing. Demographics, all pretty familiar with this. Age, we can break markets down by age. We can break markets down by race. So we might have, let's say, we were selling Latino food. then we'd be looking at marketing to Latinos. If we're selling, let's see, halal food, we'd be looking at marketing to people who uh, are in the Islam religion because they have to eat halal food. So that's that kind of thing. So race, religion, I guess the halal example is a religion. Family size has a lot to do with people's choices and so forth. So how many people in the family? Ethnicity really is very similar to race. Gender, definitely products that are targeted at women, products targeted at men. Income level, obviously, if I'm selling Mercedes Benz, I'm going to look at a higher income level than if I'm selling Kias. So income level has a definite piece of what we're looking at, and then education. People with different levels of education often have different needs and wants. So um, taking a look at education can be important. Psychographic, personality traits, motives, values, lifestyle, and then behavioral, what am I looking for? Do I use whatever this product is a lot or just a little bit? Am I very loyal to brands or not? Am I sensitive to price? That kind of thing. So just going back to the demographics, I can give you an example. When I was running stores in the Boston area, we had an extensive mailing list that we developed over a number of years from people who had actually shopped with us at some point in time. There were about 20,000 names on it, I believe. And I've had the opportunity to have that list examined by a company that does that sort of thing to tell me what the demographic makeup of my customer base was. And the results were pretty shocking to me. The majority of my customer base had a graduate or higher, graduate level degree. So they had a degree beyond college level. In the general population, that's something like, in the market I was in, something like 5% of the people. In my market, I had more than 50% of the people had graduate degrees. Why? I don't know. I was selling sporting equipment, but apparently that was a marker that people with higher educations tended to do the kinds of activities that I was selling product to. That helped inform my marketing greatly. All of a sudden now, the people that I should be targeting, the people who like what I do, kind of group around certain things. I could target alumni magazines for advertising. I could make sure that my stores were located in areas that had high concentrations of highly educated people, that sort of thing. So demographics, sometimes not obvious. There was no particular reason that you have to have a high degree to go climb mountains, but apparently people who have high levels of education like to do that sort of thing. So that was an interesting piece of information for me and helped inform my marketing. Geographics maybe have to do with where we can deliver products to. It may have to do with climate, logistics, advantages or constraints, and cultural or legal constraints. Obviously, moving into other countries falls into that cultural and legal constraint area. Logistics-based advantages or constraints. Well, if I'm selling a product that's heavy and expensive to ship, I may not be able to ship far from wherever it is that I produce the product. There are certain commodities that are very localized. Cement is one of them. So cement companies generally have I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I think it's about a 250-mile radius that they will deal within, because beyond that, they're not price competitive anymore. So you'll see lots of somewhat localized cement companies as opposed to national cement companies, because of the logistics. It's heavy stuff and it's pretty cheap. It's expensive to ship, and moving it beyond a certain area is difficult. In addition, it has to be kept liquid until it gets to the job site. And I think that there's probably some evaporative problems too. So cement tends to be pretty localized because of its logistics, and there are other products like that. That's just a pretty good example. Demographics, the easiest thing to segment by, because the information is very easy to get and easy to sort through. The U.S. Census is a marvelous source of information. It's easy to use. The search tools and the sort tools are very, very easy to use, and you can get incredibly detailed information from the census, right down to zip code areas or counties or states. So you can really target demographics if you know you're looking, let's say I was looking for highly educated, high income people who were single, which is actually the most targeted area for me in my business. So single people, highly educated with high income. I can find the concentrations of those people by going to the US Census and sorting it. And then I can decide where to site a store or to target my marketing, my communication by using that source. So very, very powerful and easy to do and relatively inexpensive. Psychographics, harder to figure out. Understanding what and why consumers buy, and it's hard to do. So here we tend to be doing more primary research. We're looking at specific people and trying to figure out why they want my product or why they don't want my product. And oftentimes those psychographic traits cross over different demographics. So you might have a lot. So a highly educated person who has high income might have similar psychographic traits to someone who isn't highly educated relative to, let's say, price sensitivity. So that psychographic trait may cross lines. And then segmenting by behaviors and attitudes. Once again, hard to find this data in public sources, but you can develop this data by doing surveys and so forth within, once you've got your demographic choices, you can figure this out in other ways. Usually more expensive to figure out, but it's definitely doable. So what do they expect from their razor blade? How often do they use razor blades? Are they really loyal to a brand once they've established that they like this razor blade? Do they experiment with others, or do they just stay loyal to that brand? Do they like the latest and greatest, or do they prefer things that don't change? And are they sensitive to price? So that's kind of what we look at for behaviors and attitudes. So this is the segmentation part of the lecture for individuals, and in the next section we'll look a little bit at segmentation in business to business marketing. Thank you. Make sure you do the questions after the section.